So good morning students. So today we'll discuss the comprehension questions. We'll start with the short answer questions. Then one more day I'll discuss the long answers, that is 4 mark and 6 mark questions, so that it becomes easy for your exams. So see the comprehension on your textbook. Comprehension 1. The first question is, I was educated more by my father's library, says Borges. He means, it's a multiple choice, A, B, C. A, school or university did not educate him. B, he was educated in his father's library too. He learned through private tuitions held in his father's library. So the answer is B, because the textbook says he learned more in his father's library than in his school or university. So this is the answer. Please have the textbook and take down the answer. Second one, why does Borges feel guilty about his mother? It's a very important question. Why does Borges feel guilty about his mother? So, generally asked in 1 mark question. Answer is, when the question starts with why, your answer should start with because. Because he had not given her the deserved happiness. See, he feels guilty. After his mother's death, he feels guilty. So this is the answer. Because he had not given her the deserved happiness. Third one, according to Borges, blindness is A, just a physical handicap, B, actually a resource. So here the answer is actually a resource. See, Borges tells that when Alifano asks him, what is blindness to you? Then he says, it is a resource. The fourth one, why does Borges prefer to believe that he is not blind? Though he is blind, he does not want to believe that he is blind, because then he will not be able to do things properly. Because he feels that the loss of his eyesight has been replaced by some other things in a positive way. He takes in a positive way, and even he starts purchasing the books and storing his library. So why he prefers to believe that he is not blind? Because it is a resource and it has been replaced by some other things. Question number 5. See, in the recent revised syllabus, we do not have yes or no questions or true or false. This is not asked in the exam. So question number 5, you can delete it. Sixth one, how, according to Borges, does the book go beyond the author's intention? How, according to Borges, the book goes beyond the author's intention? Because the book goes beyond the author's intention, because there are many things which are meager, which may be wrong or rather fallible. So that means it goes more beyond the author's intention. The answer is, the author's intention is meager and sometimes fallible. So it goes beyond his author's intention. And seventh one, when does the poetic act happen? When does the poetic act happen? See, the poetic act takes place when the poet starts writing it and when the reader starts reading it. It's very important. See, when a person reads the poem, there is an aesthetic act, or rather aesthetic effect. And there is another poetic act which begins when the poet starts writing the poem, and also when the reader starts reading the poem. Then, eighth one. What cannot be defined without oversimplifying it? What cannot be defined without oversimplifying it? So, when Borges discusses about poetry, he says this. When Alifano asks him, can you define poetry? He says, poetry cannot be defined without oversimplifying it. The answer is, poetry cannot be defined without oversimplifying it. As I told you during the class I am teaching, that poem is different and poetry is different. Poem is a series of symbols or lines, whatever it may be. And poetry, something abstract. Writer compares to the color yellow, love, and the fall of leaves in the autumn. So, please understand this. Then, what cannot be defined without oversimplifying? That is, poetry cannot be. Ninth one is a very important question. Which is the most astounding invention of man? In the textbook, finally, he comes to that. The book is the most astounding invention of man. If you see the question paper, this question has been repeated many times. So, what is the most astounding invention of man? Book is the most astounding invention of man. All the others are extensions of our body. Extension of our body. Okay. One more thing. For short answers, give short. You can answer in a word, phrase, or a sentence. Should not go more than that. Give short. Which is the most astounding invention of man? Book is the most astounding invention of man. Then these are the textbook questions. Now I will go to an additional questions. What was Borges' first literary reading? What was Borges' first literary reading? It's a very common question. The answer is Grimm's Fairy Tales in an English version. Grimm's, Grimm', Grimm's Fairy Tales in an English version. Second one, where was Borges educated? More than in school or university? Where he was educated? Answer is in his father's library. In his father's library. Third one, what kind of person was Borges' mother? So, even questions on Borges' mother is very important. So, it can be asked as a long question also, 1 mark also. If it is 1 mark, you just give the answer. She was an extraordinary person who was very kind. Borges' mother, what was her name? Donna Leonor. Donna Leonor was an extraordinary person who was very, very kind. Then, next question is, what is blindness according to Borges? What is blindness according to Borges? So, Borges says, it is a way of life that is not entirely unhappy. It is a way of life that is not entirely unhappy. It's a way of life that is not entirely unhappy. I told you double negative becomes almost positive meaning. Not entirely unhappy means quite happy only. Next one. What is true of all children when the mother dies? They feel that they have taken her for granted, as they do with the moon or the sun or the seasons. Children generally, they don't care for the mother. But when the mother dies, then they realize, see what a mistake I have done. They feel guilty, just like Borges. And they feel that they have taken her for granted, as they do with the moon or the sun or the seasons. Next one. What are given as raw material to shape our art? What are given as raw material? There are 3 things. Our humiliation, our misfortunes, and our embarrassments. Very important though. Our humiliation, misfortune, and embarrassments. Now, what has Homer written in the Odyssey? As I told you, Homer is a famous Greek writer. And he has written a great book called Iliad and another book called the Odyssey. So, what is written in the Odyssey? Answer is Homer wrote that the gods wrought and spun the skein of ruin for men. The gods wrought and spun the skein of ruin for men. For this such answers, you don't write your own. You have to write what is given in the textbook only. The gods wrought and spun the skein of ruin for men. Now what Goethe's line, Alice, Nahi, word fern mean? Then Borges speaks about another German writer, that is Goethe. He's also a very famous writer. And one line from his, that is, it means all that is near becomes far. In German it is Alles nahi word fern. It means all that is near becomes far. Then, which theme does Alifano want Borges to write about? Then Alifano is asking, there is a theme. Can you write about that? What was the theme? It was the theme of books. The theme of books. Not writing some poetry or novel. Write something about the history of the book. And that is called the theme of books. Give short answers only. Then 10th one. What strange dream did Borges have one night? It's a very important question. What strange dream, or which library he saw? Like that they will ask you. Which dream? He had a dream of the burning of the great library of Alexandria. He had a dream about the burning of the great library of Alexandria. Sometimes in exam they ask which library was burning in Borges' dream. Then you have to say the library of Alexandria. Then, what had Spengler mentioned in his book Decline of the West? Questions can be asked in different ways. Name the book written by Spengler. That means Decline of the West. And what he has written in that? That is, he wrote remarkable comments on books. He wrote remarkable comments on books. That means before Alifano asked this question, Spengler has already written something about it. He has predated and he wrote remarkable comments on books. This is the answer. Then which line does Borges quote from Bernard Shaw? So different writers one by one, you must know. Next is Bernard Shaw. So that is, every book worth being reread has been written by the Spirit. What is the line? Every book worth being reread has been written by the Spirit. Next one. What is the author's intention in a book? The author's intention is a meager thing, a fallible thing, and every book always contains something mysterious. It's very important. See, what the author is writing, it is quite simple. It is a meager, small amount, small thing. It's a fallible thing. It can be wrong. It's not that 100% it is not right. It may be wrong. And every book always contains something mysterious. Very important. Now, which aspect of book brings happiness? Which aspect of the book brings happiness? That is, a book always retains something sacred, something mortal, and something magical which brings happiness. It's also important. See, a book always retains something sacred, holy, pavitra, something mortal. Mortal means which is destroyed, which can be destroyed, which dies, and something magical which brings happiness. There are three qualities which bring happiness: sacred, mortal, magical. Next one. What is poetry according to Borges? See, poetry is something which is very intimate and essential. Very intimate and very essential. And as you know, it cannot be defined without oversimplifying it. What is poetry? Poetry is something very intimate and very essential and it cannot be defined without oversimplifying. Now, what kind of event is poetry? What kind of event? Poetry is magical, mysterious, and unexplainable. Three qualities: magical, mysterious, and unexplainable, but not incomprehensible event. But not incomprehensible event. Poetry is magical, mysterious, and unexplainable, but not incomprehensible event. That means it is quite comprehensible. Double negative. That means you can understand. It doesn't mean that you will not understand. If you read a poem, if you don't understand properly, read once more. You will understand properly. That is what it means. Poetry is magical, mysterious, and unexplainable, but not incomprehensible event. Next one. When does the poet fail in his attempt? When does he fail? The poet fails when a person reads a poem and does not feel the poetic event. Answer is, when one does not feel the poetic event upon reading it, the poet has failed. When the reader does not feel the poetic event upon reading the poem, who has failed? The poet has failed. Next one. What is important in the art of poetry? What is important in the art of poetry? Precise words are important in the art of poetry. Precise words are important in the art of poetry. Now, what do the precise words of poetry elicit? What do they elicit? The precise words of poetry elicit emotion. Elicit means bring out, give. Elicit emotion. Precise words elicit emotion. Now, which line of Emily Dickinson exemplifies that poetry elicits emotion? Borges quotes from another writer, Emily Dickinson. What she says: "This quiet dust was gentlemen and ladies." This quiet, Q-U-I-E-T. The quiet, that means silent. Dust, here indicates death, was gentlemen and ladies. The phrase gentlemen and ladies gives, they are the precise words which give emotion, which elicit emotion. So what is the line of Emily Dickinson? This quiet dust was gentlemen and ladies. Now, then name the essential. Which phrase of Emily Dickinson's gives magic and poetic quality? Which phrase? That is gentlemen and ladies. Suppose she had used some other words like men and women, it would not have given a magical effect. So she has precisely used gentlemen and ladies. Next, name the essential metaphors mentioned by Borges. So Alifano asks about the metaphors. So Borges replies that metaphors have existed from the beginning of time. Every language, every literature uses metaphors. And he concises them into 4 or 5 essential metaphors. And what are they? Answer is time and river, life and dream, death and sleep, stars and eyes, flowers and women. So these are the 5 essential metaphors according to Borges. One is time and river, life and dream, death and sleep, stars and eyes, flowers and women. Some important questions. Then the next one is, what is the poet's task according to Borges? What is the poet's task according to Borges? The poet's task is to discover the metaphors, even though they may already exist. A lot of metaphors are there. Every language contains metaphors, similes, metaphors, figures of speech, many things. And the poet's task is to discover the metaphors and use them in his poetry. Next one. what does Borges say about the disappearance of books? So, almost at the end, Alifano asks that people say that books will disappear because of due to the invention of modern methods of communications. And what does Borges reply to this? According to Borges, books will never disappear. As you know, this is the title of the interview. I believe that books will never disappear. And the answer is also, Borges tells that books will never disappear. Next, what does Borges say about the telephone? So, the telephone is an extension of our voice. The telephone is an extension of our voice. What Borges says is that all the inventions are extensions of our bodies. So, here we speak. The same thing is done through a telephone, but only that it travels very far. So, it's an extension of our voice. Next is, what does Borges say about microscope? And telescope also. The microscope and telescope are extensions of our sight. See, we just see something. But if you want to see minutely, we go through a microscope. And suppose you want to see something very, very far, like the stars, then the scientists see through the telescope. That means everything is extension of our eyes only. Only through the eyes we are looking, but with some instruments. That is why the microscope and the telescope are extensions of our voice. Next is, extensions of our sight. Next one, what does Borges say about the sword and the plow? The sword and the plow are the extensions of our arm. They are the extension of our arms. As you know, earlier days man used to fight with a hand only, without any arms. But then gradually they started fighting with sticks. Then they started fighting with swords. So these are extension of our arms only. And the plow, man was tilling the field with small instruments, hand and all that. But later on, they invented the plow, negilu. So, and that is an extension of our arms. The sword and the plow are the extension of our arms. Next one, what does Borges say about the book? It's very important. We discussed a question, which is the most astounding invention of man. Same question, but in a different way. So, what does Borges say about the book? The book is the most astounding invention of man. Here, that is okay. For this question, what does Borges say about a book? The book is an extension of our imagination and memory. Then, what does Borges say about literature? At the end, they come to the literature. So, Borges says that literature is a dream, a controlled dream. What is literature? Literature is a controlled dream. What do we owe? O-W-E, owe. To literature, according to Borges. What do we owe? What are we liable to give? What are we duty bound to give? Liable. We owe literature almost everything. What we are, what we have been, and what we will be. These three things, that is present, past and future. See, we owe literature almost everything we are, and what we have been, and also what we will be. Next one, what is our past according to Borges? So Borges says about the past. What is our past? Our past is nothing but a sequence of dreams. A sequence of dreams. Last one is, what would disappear when books disappear? What would disappear when books disappear? If books disappear, history would disappear, and surely man would disappear. If books disappear, history would disappear, and surely man would disappear. So I have framed questions for each and every line in the text. So if you are very active, you should have taken down all the questions and answers which I have been discussing. Then only you will be able to write the exam. You will score well. First, I have discussed all the textbook questions. That is Comprehension 1. Generally, Comprehension 1 questions are 1 mark questions. And Comprehension 2 are 4 mark questions. And Comprehension 3 are 6 mark questions. But sometimes 2 and 3 there is no much of bifurcation. Comprehension 2 can be asked for 6 marks, 3 can be asked for 4 marks. And that is why I always combine the questions. For 2 questions, I'll give a common answer. So that it becomes easy for the students. Otherwise, what happens, if you take some guides, they will discuss many questions and you will not be able to write anything properly. So, in the next class, I'll be dealing with the long answer questions. That is 4 mark questions and 6 mark questions. And then I'll tell you which is the answer for 2-3 questions combined. And then only you'll be able to do well. As I did in Vandana Shiva's lessons, you can frame lot of questions. But what happens, then you won't be able to remember all the answers, particularly long answers. So in the next class, next video, we will discuss the 4 mark and 6 mark questions also, and whatever is given in the grammar aspect also. So as I told you, when you read this, when you watch the video, kindly have a notebook or paper in your side, and whatever I am telling you, whatever is required, you note down. When I read the textbook, when I read the text, have the text in front of you and then underline them. When I teach in the class, I always tell, see, this question has come last year, this will come again, this is important. So similarly, I used to do that. But here, we can't do that. But you can listen to me and simultaneously you can underline. See, for example, in the beginning, who was the interviewer? Alifano. Who is being interviewed? Borges. So you must know that. The first question was about the literary reading. Then you underline. What was your first literary reading? Literary reading underline. Then you underline Grimm's fairy tales in an English version. If you do this much, when you revise for the exams, you need not read a complete textbook. Just see those things. First question will be, what was the first literary reading? Answer is Grimm's fairy tales in an English version. Second question you can see, where was Borges more educated? Just underline, in his father's library. Underline this, in his father's library. Similarly, you must do the textbook complete. You must start underlining the important things so that 1 mark questions can be asked from anywhere. See, I have discussed about 32 plus 8, about 40 questions I have discussed here, short answers. But even then, we can frame some more. They can ask anything. Some of the common important things I have already given you. But so when you underline them and when you revise, you will be able to answer any question. The method of preparing for the exam is read the text once. You must read the text. Students don't do that. They start taking the guide and start mugging up. This is of no use. I tell you, most of the guides are misguides. Some of the students, you have taken my first year guide and it's exam oriented. And when you come to the college, you can take my second year guide also. It will be only exam oriented. It will be exactly the prescribed limit. That is very important. See, 1 mark questions, how they give, you might have seen in my 2 tests we had last month, 25 marks test. Adರಲ್ಲಿ I have given you exam oriented pattern. Answer the following in a word, phrase or sentence. Should not go more than 1 sentence. If you go for 2 sentences, it is wrong. That is why some of the guides, they give long answers for 1 mark. And they give short answers for long answers. 4 mark questions and all. So please follow the pattern. Answer the following in a word, phrase or a sentence. For example, which is the phrase Emily Dickinson uses to elicit emotion? Just write. What is that? Gentlemen and ladies. If you don't write the full sentence also, you will get marks. There's no problem. You can write the full sentence also. You can write only that phrase. Okay, for example, which is the most astounding invention of man? Answer you can give, the book. Sometimes students feel, if I read only the book, whether I will get marks, 100% you will get marks. This is the basic difference between PU and high school. In high school, they expect you to write everything. Whatever is given in the textbook, you have. That is why this is called as an exercise. High school book, textbook nodidre, you see, there is no comprehensions. It is an exercise. That means teacher will tell you, take page number 5, underline, take these 2 lines and answer. You have to do that one only. But in PU, it's not like that. It is comprehension. What is comprehension first of all? I think many students will not be knowing. Comprehension means understanding. What you have understood from the text. So, whatever you understood, if it is slightly this side, that side also will give you marks. There is no problem. 1 mark questions will be, even if it's 50% correct, we give 1 mark. We don't give half or 0. So, please remember, follow the prescribed limit. In your question paper itself, it gives, follow the prescribed limit. That means 1 mark questions, short, 4 mark questions will be 80 to 100 words, 6 marks will be 200 words. This is your limit. Please, the why I am doing all this is, we may not know when we will meet directly. So this is all preparation for your exams. You must write properly. When you are answering these weekly tests, or what is that in English, we are giving 2 tests only. That is second week and 4th week. So, in that answer should be proper. I have seen, I am valuing some of your PDFs and all that. Answers are quite good. But how can I believe that? You might have copied from the textbook also. And I believe some students have been xeroxed also and sending. We can easily find out. But that is not the matter here, because we can't judge. But you follow the pattern. And I am quite satisfied. You are following the correct patterns. Short answers, long answers, very long answers. Anyway, with this I will close today's video. And tomorrow I will tell you 4 mark and 6 marks we will discuss. As I told you, it is better that you have something in your side and start noting down some points and writing and making some notes and all that. Okay, thank you.